Welcome to the XT Podcast, your ultimate destination for valuable insights, practical advice, and inspiring stories that will transform the way you experience business, governance, and life. Join your host, Ashutosh, as he dives deep into three distinct editions: Customer Experience Edition, where industry leaders discuss CX strategies, product brand, employee experience, digital innovations, and best practices for improving customer engagement, retention, and loyalty.
Welcome back to the XT Podcast, where we decode what it really takes to drive growth in a world that's changing faster than we can spell AI. Today's guest is someone I've admired for a long time, Ken Hughes, also known as the King of Customer Experience. Ken is one of the world's leading voices on modern consumer culture and behavioral economics. He has advised giants like Google, Coca-Cola, the NFL, Verizon on how to go beyond transactions and create truly human experiences. With over 2 decades at the helm of a consumer insight agency, Ken blends psychology, digital anthropology, just the right dose of Irish wit to crack open how customers think, feel, and connect. He's also a TED speaker, a university professor, an actor, and a coach to high performance leaders and athletes. In short, he doesn't just talk about connections, he lives it. In this episode, we slow things down deliberately. Amidst the noise of Gen AI, automation, AI, ML at scale, we ask, why does your brand not exist until your customer tells your story? How can brands rediscover intimacy? Can you build surprise and delight into the system even while optimizing for efficiency? Why is play not just for children? And how can strategy embrace mischief and vulnerability? And finally, what must a leader stop doing today and start doing instead to shift from being a commodity to becoming a soul shifting brand? Ken doesn't just share ideas, he tells stories that stick. From the goldfish on a Virgin Atlantic flight to an AI powered nostalgia at Octopus Energy, this episode will jolt you, warm you, and make you rethink how human your customer experience really is. Let's get into it. Hey, Ken, thank you so much for joining us at the XT podcast.
Hey, you're very welcome. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, honestly, Ken, this one's been high on my list. There are very few people who can light up a stage and a spreadsheet and who can unpack the complexity of shopper neuro behavior 1 minute and crack a joke about pancake rituals the next. And you're definitely one of them. So thank you for joining. I'm really looking forward to this one.
Oh, you're very, very welcome.
Perfect. Ken, the first thing, we live in the world today with jargonizes AI, Gen AI, automation. So therefore, I thought maybe I'll love to take a step back. And when I talk to you, I'll love to deliberately slow down, zoom out, and focus on the human. Because there's one statement you had made which resonated with me a lot. You said, your brand doesn't exist until the customer tells your story. I would love to know what do brands often get wrong about their own existence and how can they fix it?
Yeah, I think when I said that, the like a brand is a psychological construction. Like it doesn't actually exist in the world. The product exists, of course, and we can experience the service. You can look at the logo, but other than that, the brand is an idea. It's an association. It's a trust. They don't physically exist really. They only mentally exist in people's minds. And if you're lucky, if you've done your work, they exist in people's hearts. And so there's an English novelist called Terry Pratchett. He has this expression, this piece of writing that says, "Do you not know that a man is not dead until his name is not spoken?" So this idea that someday you and I will
Nice.
die, and maybe our children or our grandchildren will remember us and they will use our name in a story maybe. And every time they use our name, they kind of bring us back to life in memory. But there will come a day where nobody ever says your name again. Maybe 3 generations, 4 generations later. And that's really when you die, because now your whole memory is deleted from the world that exists. And I think it's the same for brands. Unless our customers are talking about us in their peer networks and posting about us in our socials and commenting on us and sharing experiences with their friends, we don't actually exist. We just are a product on the shelf. And you mention AI, and it's interesting. There's a commoditization of service happening at the moment.
Yes.
Where the technology that is used to be only accessible by huge corporations with big, deep pockets, a local mom and pop business on a corner can now access technology very cheaply that allows them to also deliver amazing customer experience, employee experience. And so what we're seeing now is a commoditization of those things. So everyone's going to have good quality product. Everyone's going to have really competitive pricing. Everyone's going to have access to great technology that allows them to go to market really well. And in a world like that, what exists then for competitive advantage? All that exists, I would argue, is the association emotively that you have with a brand. And so I use this expression about like inviting a brand in. So one of the mistakes that I think brand owners make is that they think they're selling something. They're selling a product. They're selling a service. They're not doing that. They, of course, have a product and service available to buy, but every time a customer buys that product or service, they're inviting you into their lives. And the moment you use that language and you realize what you're saying, then you start to respect your customer a little bit more. You start to see it as a relationship and not a transaction. And you mentioned the human aspect. So all my work, I'm a social scientist. I'm fascinated by human behavior, by human emotion, and by how we can harness that emotion. And we do a very poor job, mainly, I'll be honest. We dressed it up in marketing, but actually it's still a megaphone. We're still just shouting through a megaphone, buy me, I'm better. And so we make it about us, not about them. And in a relationship, if you make it all about you in a human relationship, think of a romantic relationship. Imagine if you go on a date and you talk about yourself for an hour. Do you think that the person on the date wants to have a second date with you? No. And so that's what we do in branding. And by getting them to tell your story, of course, for you, that's when really the strongest marketing asset we have today, the peer-to-peer network, comes to life. So let me tell you a story about Virgin Atlantic, the airline. This is a wonderful story about a family who were emigrating from the UK to the US. And they go to the airport. They've got your 8-year-old kid with them behind. They're checking in. And the lady checking them in looks up and starts laughing because the little boy is holding a goldfish in a plastic bag, swimming around. And she's thinking, well, there's more than 100 mils of liquid in that bag. That's not going on the plane. And secondly, you can't bring animals to, quarantine and blah, blah. And so she says to the parents and the kid, look, you can't bring that fish on board. I'm sorry. And of course, the little boy starts roaring. He's like, I'm leaving my country and my friends and my school and all my hobbies. And I just wanted to bring my fish to America. Snot and tears. Quick as a flash, the lady, from a customer experience point of view, seeing the pain, says, oh, no, honey, you don't understand. What you mean is, you have to give the fish to me. And I'll put him on the plane with the special VIP section reserved just for goldfish. And he's going to fly with all the other goldfish today going to America. And so, little boy wipes his tears away and hands over his fish to go proudly to the VIP section of the plane. She prints out the boarding cards, gives them to the parents, who wink at her and think, thank you so much. They usher the kid through security, and it's a 10-hour flight. He's going to forget that there was a fish even. And, well done. She's lovely. What they don't know is that the moment they go through security, the lady takes out her phone, takes a few pictures and photographs of the fish, sends those pictures to Atlanta to her colleague on the other side of the world, who then leaves her, where this story is going, don't you? Leaves her workstation, drives to the local pet shop, buys an identical looking goldfish. And 10 hours later, when that little boy's plane touches down, she's standing there at the top of the ramp and he takes his fish to America. Now, beautiful story, like heartwarming. And what's really interesting about this story, there's a few things. Firstly, there's an employee who is empowered within an organization that she works in to say, if you find a moment that you can dissolve the pain of a customer, or you can make a customer smile or go beyond their expectation, take it. Don't ask your manager. Don't ask anybody. Just do it. And that takes employee empowerment, and that's really important in customer experience. The second thing, so neither of those women involved on both sides of the ocean had to call Sir Richard Branson and say, do you mind if I take an hour off to buy a fish? It's just in the culture of the organization. So that's one point about top down. Make sure that as a leader, you instill this behavior in your employees. The second thing then is, back to your opening question, the bringing a brand to life through storytelling. That family got off that plane, had this amazing experience, and of course told that story. And that story got told to friends, to the family, to internet, to viral. And here I am telling it to, I've told it to tens of thousands of people all over the world every year. Every time I tell the story, the Virgin brand gets coded in, not so much mind, but heart, because it's a nice story. And everyone goes, and it kind of brings the Virgin brand values to life. We care about the customer. It's not just about making the profit off the airline seat. It's about you. It's about how we can make your life better. And so that's when a brand is brought to life through a story. And my challenge to audiences when I'm working with them is, well, what have you done today that are your goldfish stories? Because as a brand, if you haven't created a moment that matters to a customer today, that will make them tell your story, that will make them take a picture, that will make them share something, then I would argue you don't exist. You're just a commodity product on a shelf somewhere. You don't exist as a brand. And if you want to exist as a brand, you have to be manufacturing those goldfish moments every day, at every moment of the customer journey, looking for the moments that excite, that delight, that go beyond expectation. And you do that with your employees also. And from a work experience, that they're having moments at work that go beyond their expectation. And that's the way then you have an empowered employee workforce. You have a customer who's getting, outstanding world-class customer experiences. And then both those people, employees and customers, will talk about your brand inside their peer network. And that is how you bring a brand.
How beautiful, Ken. The story really resonates with me. And in fact, it brings up another question, Ken. Often, whenever I'm driving CX transformations for organizations, I've seen that customer experience is often linked to scores, CSAT, NPS, customer effort score, or it's been linked to measuring interactions and perceptions, but nobody talks about baseline to what. And your story almost brings in the nuance of brand promise. What is the brand promising? And so that once the frontline is empowered, they know what promises we need to deliver to as well. And it just almost unifies all the functions, all the departments in the organization to rally up and deliver on the promise, do whatever it takes to ensure the promise is delivered. Do you think organizations miss out on pivoting CX around brand promise rather than pivoting it around metrics and scores and score chasing and
Yeah.
so on? Because I don't see that language being talked about
No,
unless leaders like you highlight this.
I agree with you. I ran a research agency for 15 years before I became a professional speaker. And I did NPS programs for some of the biggest brands in the world. And I could see every year that went past that the passion around NPS is beautiful, but people get lost so much in the data, the dashboards, the metrics, the
Yes.
numbers, and they completely disconnect the numbers from the moments that matter. And so there's this hysteria around hitting the number and do anything to hit the number because the number is connected to my bonus. But they forget that it's the people. And and again, I was listening to Danny Mayer recently, the founder of Shake Shack and Union Hospitality. He owns so many restaurants in New York, and he's a really, really passionate employee empowerment guy. And he talks about, the employee being your first customer. Get that right first. And he has this chain of value. And it's employee, it's customer. And yeah, there are other stakeholders, but the profit will come. You don't have to be like, let's make as much money as we can. Let's get the KPIs. I think investing in people and investing in relationship is key. And the return will come. So I'm often challenged when I speak about customer experience about the ROI, because people think, well, what's the ROI of all this? What's the
Yes.
ROI? And I try and move people from an ROI conversation to a DTI conversation, not a return on investment, but a desire to invest, just a
Nice.
desire to invest. So again, if you bring it back to human relationship, imagine you meet somebody romantically and you're in a relationship and you you discover a ledger, a book under their bed, and they've been note taking every nice thing you say or every nasty thing you say, and they've been keeping a ledger of like pros and cons, and only if you say 10 nice things will they kiss you, or will they. I mean, that would be a very toxic relationship, wouldn't it? Because you shouldn't be looking for what you're going to get back in a relationship. You should just have a genuine desire to invest in depth and in intimacy, because that's where the whole sense of humanity belongs. Like, as a human, all we seek is to belong, to love, to be loved, to connect. That's the core of humanity. And unfortunately, in branding, we forget that. It all becomes about the numbers and the profit and the corporate and the capitalist world that we live in. Look, that's all important. There are stakeholders that want their profit. I get it. But actually, we can return that profit still by knowing just how to connect. So I have a 3-word connection tagline, which is connection is everything. Connection
Nice.
is everything. And it's true in your family, it's true in your friendships, it's true in your romantic relationships, it's true with your children, it's true with your work colleagues, it's also true with your customers. Connection is all that matters. And during the pandemic, we all had a little taste of disconnection. And we've all kind of conveniently forgotten about the pandemic, because
Yes.
it's like the PTSD related to that experience was like, whoa. And we had unfortunately, I mean, as a social scientist, I really enjoyed the pandemic, because like it was just a fascinating global experiment on what happens when you force humans en masse to be disconnected from their purpose in work, from their ability to work, from their ability to travel, from family, from friends, from physical touch, physical intimacy. It was fascinating. But we've all forgotten about it very quickly, because it was very, very traumatic. connection is what we're programmed to do. And so in branding, I think we need to need to lean into this intimacy world, the world of vulnerability and exploration and curiosity. And that's where, when you start to engage this as opposed to this. So in the 80s and 90s, we spoke a lot in marketing about brand mind space. Like, what's the mind space? And we'd measure that as well. Metrics, the share of voice, and we'd throw money at advertising to maximize mind space. I need to, what's the first brand you think of when you think of a soft drink? Is it Coca-Cola? Is it Pepsi? I want to own the mind space. Whereas what we've realized now is that it's the heart space you want to own.
Lovely.
It's not the mind space. I mean, obviously you have to be remembered as a brand, but really everyone can do that today with social media. Everyone can buy their way into your pocket. So really it's the brands that are connecting here that matter.
I love it how you're framing this, Ken. In fact, I can think of so many leaders like you who have been pioneering such work, whether it's the concept of triune brain, Ulrice and Jack Trout, when they talked about positioning in the mind space. What I've always sensed is corporates latch onto that for sure, but they make it very formulaic. For them, it's a formula to achieve an outcome, and which is what we see when it comes to today: personalization, relationship management, connection management, leveraging the tech. There is almost a competition to achieve scale on these initiatives, but I sense that the corporates are losing the touch on the ground, the human led empathy being at the forefront and driving the genuine relationships that are necessary. And I see a catch 22 of sorts. How do we manage scale while ensuring that we continue to build a one-on-one relationship, one-on-one connection, as you call it?
Yeah.
And both are equally important. None can exist without the other. So is there any way to balance the two and achieve both?
Yeah, I think there is. I think we're about to enter actually a fantastic depth and scale equilibrium, which is wonderful. We always had to sacrifice one for the other. So you could have this depth of connection where, again, let's go back to a simple mom and pop business. They know all their customers. They're running a corner store, dry cleaner. They have maybe 500 customers and they know them all by face. So they have a lovely depth of connection. And then that same person opens another 1,000 dry cleaners all over the world. Now you're screwed because now you've got scale, but you lose the depth. Whereas with the AI technology coming our way, we of course now have an ability to use all this magnificent data and make people feel special no matter what the scale. And that's a beautiful thing. So let me give you a few examples. There's a really wonderful example I like from an energy sustainability business called Octopus Energy. And they're based in the UK and they're global really at this point, but they are selling gas, selling electricity. So again, ultimate commodity product. How do you differentiate? It's just gas. So they went after CX as their differentiator. Let's be the most consumer facing, because utility companies are notoriously bad globally at the customer piece. And so they were really strong in CX. And during the pandemic, they had the same problem every other insurance and bank and a utility company had when it started. They had a huge amount of inbound calls because people couldn't pay their bills and they were like, weren't working. But their own staff who were on the phones, of course, were also now disappearing and working from home for the first time. And it was chaos. So what went from kind of a 1 minute wait on the phone to be spoken to, of course, went to like 5 and 10 minutes. And as a customer experience brand, they didn't like that. They're okay, we're now kind of breaking the promise, as you talked about earlier on, brand promise. We're breaking our core promise that we will be there for you. And so they thought, well, what can we do? We can't get more staff overnight because the pandemic is crazy. We can't stop people calling. And one of the executives mentioned that he had just read an article a few weeks ago in the newspaper about nostalgia. And he, in this article, had said that the most powerful music you will ever hear, and I know all your listeners will be ChatGPT and Googling this later, is the song that was the summer hit when you were aged 14. So when you were aged 14 as a young teenager full of hormones and angst and chasing the guys and chasing the girls and sneaky cigarettes behind the bike shed and all that stuff, powerful puberty moments. And the soundtrack of that summer gets coded into your cells as like this future, what my life could be, will be. And when you hear that music, no matter what age you are, 30, 40, 80, you still go back to that 14-year-old self. So it's really powerful. Right? And they thought that's very interesting. So they built a really simple system. And this is like, God, low-level AI, where when the person called into the system, of course, it would take your phone number and it would link that phone number with your account number. And that's normal. That always happens in customer service. And now it would reach into your account and pull your date of birth. And it would look at your date of birth, look at the year of birth, go into its jukebox and pull the song that was the hit when you were 14. So instead of listening on the phone for 5 minutes to the usual crap music or their own advertising or their own upselling, hey, Ken, you could have the package of, Now you got fed a song that was going to make you feel something. And so
How beautiful.
now it was going to be the same wait. You were still going to wait 8 minutes, but this time you were going to hear two songs from 1978 or 1984 or whatever, and it was going to make you feel, I remember this, and you were going to smile. And in fact, they had such good success with the program that often the agent would come on to take the call, and they would be told, hey, I was listening to that. Go away. And so I love the simplicity of the idea, the simplicity of the technology, but back to your point, depth and scale. Every single person calling in, tens of thousands a day, were getting their own little moment. And that's the thing about how using technology and using the scale of the technology we have, but still retaining the depth of connection. Find a way to connect with a customer that makes them feel. Because if you're not making someone feel something, again, you're missing the point. Like, you had an opportunity of connection. They might be calling in just to do something very simple, like change my credit card details, but it's a transaction if you leave it that way. But if you have an empowered employee who maybe talks to them in a certain way, or that piece of technology that makes them feel, then you got the customer putting the phone down, feeling something. And this is where the work with chatbots, because you look at the chatbots, they're so bad, and it's so just two-dimensional. Whereas now, we look at the deep fakes and the tone that we have. There's no excuse for any brand or any leader listening to this. If you are running an old-fashioned 2-year, 3-year-old chatbot on your website, you need to fix that right now, because the technology that already exists can have a fully deep fake avatar. Really, we see it all every day now. And it can be just like this. In fact, maybe I'm not even me. Maybe you're listening to an avatar. Maybe this is an avatar. We're at that point where what's real and what's not. So certainly from a customer service point of view, our interactions should be full of empathy, full of real humanity, not just like, I do not understand that. That's so. You may as well go back to the 80s. So yeah, it's all about depth for me, retaining the depth as we ramp up the scale. And I think we can do that now with the technology we have.
Beautiful. I mean, I don't know about the listeners, but I'll definitely be searching for the top soundtrack in '96. That's when I was 14, and see if that links to my nostalgia or not. Definitely, that's the search I'll be doing. Ken, the first story you talked about, which is the goldfish story, and then how you explained how we can balance depth and scale. What resonated with me is another concept of ambidextrous organizations, which is how do we balance efficiency and innovation. Samsung was being referred as an example here. So while maybe there's a need for ambidextrity when it comes to depth and scale, I'm wondering if there's a need for ambidextrity to manage predictability and surprise as well, because clearly what happened with the goldfish story was a moment of surprise, not just moment of delight. Nobody would have expected that. Now,
Yes.
how do organizations ensure that while they build in the culture, the governance, the processes, and other things to operate at scale, they ensure there are moments of surprises as well when they focus on depth?
Yeah,
How do they
it's
manage
great.
both?
Yeah, great question. So obviously we have to have everything that we need to be in place to deliver product and service. So it goes without saying that you have to have all that compliance and governance. I think we fall down, unfortunately, the well then of that's all that matters. And so, as you correctly point out, the moment in that customer journey with the goldfish story is when they step off the plane and they have this. The power of surprise and delight is amazing, even physiologically. So what surprise is an error message in your body. Because if you go back
Yes.
to caveman times, something happens and it's unpredictable. It means that red alert, something. So everything is primed for learning. So you think, hang on, what's happening? And then very quickly, like literally in an eighth of a second, you realize, oh, it's a good thing. Oh, this is nice. And then you get rush of dopamine, rush of good hormones, and they get connected then to the brand experience. So this is why it's coded into literally memory. And so I'm a huge advocate of surprise and delight, and it matters. And again, I'll bring it back to people's lives. Think about this. It's your birthday and you wake up and your husband or wife or lover, or maybe all three, I don't know. I don't judge. You open a birthday card and in it they've said how much they love you. Oh, I love you. That's nice. But you could argue it's predictable because it's your birthday. And so if you didn't get a birthday card and it said nice things, you'd kind of be pissed off. So it's nice, but it's predictable. It doesn't have the same surprise impact. And imagine now 3 months later, you go to work and you pick up your sandwich that you've made yourself just as you walk out the door. And when you open it at 12 p.m. at your desk, out falls a little note, like inside your sandwich, inside the bread, out falls a little note from your wife, husband. And they've written some nice things in it about you and they love you. Now that is the same note as in the birthday card. It's the same sentiments, but it's power when it's completely unpredictable and it's a
Yes.
surprise and it's a moment that says, I love you in your day and they snuck it into your sandwich when you weren't even looking. You can see how that's more powerful, can't you? Because you go, oh wow, might bring a tear to your eye. You certainly would text them and say, oh, that was cute. Whereas the predictable birthday card is what you expect. And that's the difference in branding. Like the moments that matter, the quality product that works first time. Yeah, well, I expected that. And the instant delivery. Yeah, well, I expected that. So the things that used to delight us no longer delight us. That's the problem. So, like you and I grew up in a world of 28-day delivery. You ordered something in the mail catalog and it came 28 days later, and that was acceptable. And then Jeff Bezos came along and challenged that idea and said, well, how about 2-day delivery? And we all thought, whoa, 2-day delivery. And then it became 1 day, and then it became same day, and then it became 4 hours. Then it became, the Amazon instant lockers that are on US campuses are 3-minute delivery. So a US student can pick one of the top 100 items and have it within 3 minutes of ordering. 3 minutes. And so the things that we expect keep changing. And so we're in a race for relevance with customers all the time in terms of what they want. But therefore, the surprise and delight piece becomes way more important and powerful. And I encourage everybody to always appoint a customer experience surprise and delight director. Like it should actually be someone's job inside an organization to every day look for the goldfish moments, to manufacture the goldfish moments, to look at, and one day it might be in logistics, the next day it might be in marketing, the next day it might be in product R&D, but it's got to be somewhere, and every day it's there. Because if you don't give it to someone as a job, it kind of starts to fall between everyone's job. Whereas if someone's business card says, I'm the surprise and delight director, it's my job to find moments that matter. And I'm publishing a book in a few months on Taylor Swift. And I find Taylor Swift as a global brand. Obviously, as an entertainer and a musician and a producer, director, she's amazing. But as an entrepreneur, and as I call her the queen of connection, she has always understood. Like if people don't understand why her album is the biggest selling album of all time, biggest selling music movie of all time, biggest selling concert of all time with the Eras tour, like what happened? Why? Because Lady Gaga and Pink and Madonna, they're all good. They've all got access to the same raw materials, the same producers, directors, same talent pool, same studios. But how has Taylor Swift done what she's done? It's because ever since she was 16, she understood that connection is everything. And you spend hours on social media, you connect with the fans, you make them feel like they're in your life, you step into their life, you tear away the line between us and them. And she's a master of surprise and delight. And she always sends her fans things. She's famous for looking on their social media for months and months and months, following fans, like flipping the whole the fan dynamic, and her stalking her fans and sending them gifts in the post that are relevant to their lives and stuff. And so that's the way you do it as a brand. You look for the moments to really bring a smile to your customer's face. And if you're not doing that, if you're just delivering the expected, because that's the definition of satisfaction. Satisfaction is customer experience meets customer expectation.
Yes.
And we measure that in NPS scores, and we think 7% satisfaction. Yay! Well, all you've done is you've matched what they wanted to get. That's not great. Like you have to aim for delight. You have to aim for delighting your customer, going beyond their expectations. And if you keep doing that, you end up then with an empowered customer, and a customer that feels they belong to you emotionally. I always talk about like Harley Davidson, Red Bull. These are brands that people tattoo on their skin.
Yes.
Like talk about getting to a level where you have an empowered customer who's actually inking up and they've put a brand logo on their skin because they say, this is who I belong to. This is my tribe. I was at the skiing a couple of years ago, young 25-year-old with a big Red Bull tattoo across his neck, and that's the most prominent place you could be for a brand.
Yes.
And he's a walking advertisement for the brand. It's not about the soda in the can. It's about the tribe, the belonging, the who he is, the X Games guy. This is who I run with. This is my pack. These are my wolves, And so that's the point where you have tribal belonging. And again, back to Taylor Swift, the Swiftie army she has, that tribal belonging.
Yes.
That it only comes from continuous investment in connection and in customer experience and in surprise and delight.
It's fascinating, Ken, the way you talk and convey. It seems as if you're moving completely away from the world of journey mapping and touchpoint transformation. Not that it's not important,
Absolutely.
but you're almost scripting like a play the moments of surprises, moment of delights that could be worked out as part of customer experience.
Yeah.
So is that a mandate you would recommend, that one should think of it as a play, have elements of mischief added in, surprise, childlike humanity, if you will? How do we processify this? How do we regularize this in any organization? I mean, one is having the position that you talked about, that at least somebody owning this. That's one. But what else we could do to ensure the organization understands this and goes beyond mapping and touch point specific analysis and transformation, but thinks of it as a opportunity to script the moment of surprises?
Yeah, I think you're right. It definitely is an arc. It's I think you need to look at it again, going back to human relationship. We all need to make an effort. That's that first 6 months or 12 months of dating where you made your wife or husband love you by doing all these amazing things and going for surprises, and then you get married, and then 10 years later you look at each other and you think, when last did we go on a date? And you think, what happened? And often relationships finish because of that, because people stop making an effort. And just because you have a good customer journey doesn't mean that you can't reinvent it continuously and look for new opportunities. And so I would encourage my teams. We meet every three months and we look at our entire customer journey every 3 months, and we find new places to surprise and delight. So it is a conscious thing you have to do, absolutely. And that the word that you use there, play, I think it all starts with curiosity. This is the core value that we don't talk about enough in corporate. Out of curiosity comes ideation and creativity, innovation. So when you were a child and your mother usually pushed you out the door and said, go play, go sit in the street and play. And then you met some other friends and you all just sat there and you thought, well, because I love talking about this, the 80s and the 90s, we had no phones, which
Of
kill
course.
curiosity. The phone kills curiosity. Screens kill curiosity. And so you sat there as a human and you looked at your friends and you came up with something to do. Maybe you built a fort, or you played a game, or you got on your bicycles and you went off somewhere, or and you got up to mischief also. Oh yeah, there was mischief involved. But the point is that the law of physics, the nature abhors a vacuum. If you create a vacuum, it will be filled by something. And this is the moment of curiosity. So children are naturally amazing to watch as research subjects, because they use play to explore. That's what play is for. Play is to explore my environment. And so they climb a tree and they just discover limits to their own physical abilities, and they fall, they break their arm. All good things. All good things. Whereas today in modern society, we put bubble wrap around our children. And if they do play, it's in a very structured playground where the steps are the same distance in the slide. That teaches you nothing. It teaches you predictability. So, let your children play in the woods. Let your children play with knives. Let your children play with fire. Absolutely. Because this is how we explore, is how we learn. And then when we hit the corporate world, the schooling system sadly kind of also wrings out the creativity from us. And generally things like drama and music and art are kind of lower down in the curriculums, and the things like maths and things are higher up. And so what we end up then doing is we recruit people to the corporate world. So one of my favorite things to do in a large audience, when maybe I have 2,000 or 3,000 people in a room, and I say, can you put your hands up, please, if you play an instrument regularly at home? If you paint, if you draw, how many of you would have creative hobbies? And about 5% of the audience put their hand up. And,
Ooh.
and you say, well, can you see our problem? Like, what we've done is we've recruited a type of person into the industry, into corporate capitalist world management roles, because it is good, logical thinking, management thinking, rational thought. This is how we get things done. Great. But we're missing an entire cohort of curiosity, creativity. And interestingly, in the diversity argument, what comes up regularly is gender diversity, which is,
Yes.
it's actually a proxy. Age diversity, racial diversity, they're all proxies for just what we're trying to say is we want different types of thinking around the table.
Yes.
Because women do think differently to men, and younger people do think differently to older people, and different cultures have different cultural norms, and therefore they have different ways of solving a problem. And so it's not about the color of the skin or the gender or the age of the person. It's not about sexual diversity. It's actually about the different types of thinking. And one of the ones that we don't often talk about is neurodiversity. People with ADHD, people with autism, they have different ways of thinking. And generally, they've been excluded from the corporate world because they're a nightmare to manage and you don't fit into our way of working. But actually, they're the very type of people that, given a problem, will go off in a mad direction with it and come
Yes.
back with an answer that you would never have got to. But then you think, oh, that's genius. That is absolute genius. That's that moment where the guy opens the paper and reads the article on nostalgia and connects that article to, well, we could do this. And boom. And so I think diversity of thinking in organizations, we have to encourage our people to be more playful, to be more mischievous, to be creative, and to flex that muscle on a daily basis. You're not going to have an amazing idea on a Monday in a meeting if you haven't become a creative person on a daily basis. So I did an experiment 10 years ago where I did something new every day for a year. So every single day I did something new by midnight that I had never, ever done before in my life. And
Wow.
that sounds like, and I'll be honest, it was a bit mad, but they could be simple things. They didn't have to be very complicated things, but they could be simple things. But they had to be something new that you'd never, ever done before. So you were challenging your mind to look for the new in the everyday environment. And there's a whole TED talk your listeners can listen to it in their own time. It's called Time Bending. That idea changed my life forever. And it changed my attitude to life. I launched new businesses afterwards. In fact, I moved on from a relationship I was in, and it just challenged who I was. as a person, because you started looking for news, you became more curious, you became, and definitely accelerated my own creativity and innovation hugely. I think we need to encourage that in organizations for people. And, some organizations already have it, that Google 80% rule. It's actually about giving people 20% of their time to be able to produce content and work on their own projects they don't feel that they have to succeed in, i.e. they can play for 20% of your time. See what happens. And maybe out of that comes something that we can use in Google. And they know that by investing in play, by investing in curiosity, you allow people just space to breathe, space to think. And that's something we're lacking hugely in the modern capitalist way of working, space. So some of my best ideas will happen walking on the beach, walking in the forest. If I ever am meeting new suppliers, new providers, I tend not to meet them in boardrooms. I tend to meet them out and about walking. If you want to meet me, you walk. And
Nice.
we go spatially way and you come up with some ideas. And so I think getting out of your normal environments. And again, it was one of the issues of the pandemic. We were all working in the same physical buildings,
Yes.
i.e. our homes, for a long period of time, surrounded by the same people. So no additional environmental stimulus, same people, same place. And you don't get that from the screen really. And so the little ideas that you would have had, going somewhere new, seeing somewhere new, eating something new, meeting people that are new, you never know where the next idea is going to come for something. And usually it doesn't come from the obvious place. It comes from seeing something in a different industry or a different person that you meet, and you think, and it triggers a chain, and then you have this thought. But to have the thought, you've got to have space. People talk about having thoughts in the shower. Yeah, and I don't know about you, where you have your kind of ideas, but it probably won't be. Yeah, shower. Yeah, it won't be like sitting with a pen at a notebook, because it's just going to come to you. And the shower is a kind of a space that you've made for yourself accidentally, where you can do nothing else. You can't be on a screen. You can't be having a conversation. It's just you and your mind. And so that's why I don't like people who go to the gym with earbuds. Never bring your earbuds to the gym. Yeah, just go with your mind. Go with your mind to the gym. And people really suffer from, I can't, I couldn't do that. I have to have my music, my podcast. And you're wasting the moment there. Go for 45 minutes, work out your body, which is good for you. But also just let the stillness be part of the 45 minutes. Let the mind just be there and see what comes in, And I might go off in stupid directions, I might daydream. Fine. Daydreaming is really good too. Whereas the moment we put the devices in, again, it's the same. You're back to the screen. You're back to predictable content. Whereas when you let your own mind wander, that's the curiosity piece is so, so important.
Ken, the problem of talking to people like you is that your answer leads to 10 other questions. And unfortunately, we have limited time. And I had a very different question planned for concluding the conversation. But given your answers, I would love to go on a different tangent.
Go.
And it is coming in from your analysis of what needs to be done. But what I also see happening in the world today is there's a lot of transactionality versus emotionality. For example, you always refer to relationships. I see that customers today are in situationships with brands. No one's married to brand anymore.
Yeah.
I had a lovely conversation just the last episode. Richard Schwartz, who mentioned nobody wants a Pfizer tattoo. He was talking in context of pharma, and there's almost a focus on what will I get from this relationship, engagement, brand association, what you will, and a complete focus on rational, outcome-based, evidence-based thinking rather than the heart space that you so rightfully emphasize. Do you think there's hope for us as humans? Do you think this language would continue to persist, exist, mean something, and be of impact as the tech takes over? And as you rightly said, the education is making us far more literate, but less knowledgeable and less of character at times. Do you think there's hope for us? Sorry to end on such a
No,
negative note, but I couldn't help but ask this question to
I
you,
don't
Ken.
think it's negative. I think it's quite a realistic question to ask. I think if you look at the laws of economics, they state that the thing that is scarcer becomes more valuable. That's the fundamental law of economics. The scarcer the thing, the more valuable it becomes. And I do think we are heading into quite a scarce human contact phase of our human existence, where what's going to happen with AI, and no one really is talking about quantum computing, because what quantum computing will come along and do to AI is just powers it beyond where we think it can go. And so imagine the stuff that we're seeing this year with AI. Imagine that 2 years later, powered by quantum, is just whoa. And so we will definitely be in a world where agent AI is running our lives. And isn't that great, because your agent is doing everything for you? But the point of human contact still, you cannot take away the whole core of why humans exist. And humans do exist to love and be loved and to belong and to feel that connection. That's not going anywhere. And we'll get a lot of that through technology. Fantastic. But really what we want is we want to feel that connection at all times. And the brands that lean into that now and that invest now in that connection is everything. And so I think we are going to go into a space of amazing digital abilities, but the brands that hold on to the empathy part and they make you feel something, the other brands are going to win this, absolutely. And again, they're always going to be the moments that matter, the moments in an interaction that the Ritz Carlton have a famous $2,000. I'm sure your listeners will know this. A $2,000 budget available to every frontline user or employee to spend on a guest if there's a problem, because they know the customer lifetime value of a customer is quarter of a million. So $2,000 spend is only 1%. So invest the 1% to get the $250,000, of course. And so there was this moment where a executive left the hotel around 6 a.m., early flight to Hawaii, opens his laptop bag on the flight to do an important presentation that he had half done for this meeting he had that day, discovered his laptop wasn't in his bag. His laptop was missing. He was horrified. He had left the laptop in the hotel. He landed in Hawaii, called the hotel. He said, please tell me you've got my laptop. The housekeeper goes into his room, finds the laptop, thinks, yes, you left it here. He's like, oh my God, I have a meeting in like 6 hours. I need that laptop. And instead of giving it to the loss prevention team, and they would courier it to him the next day, she took her apron off, went downstairs, got a taxi to the airport, bought herself an economy ticket to Hawaii, stepped on the plane 2 hours later, landed in Hawaii, got it, taxi to his hotel, knocked on his hotel door, and just gave him the laptop. And he was like, whoa. And, he made it to his meeting. And again, it's like the goldfish story, similar. And did she lose her job for just leaving the cleaning schedule? No. No, she was celebrated in the organization for seeing a moment and doing what was right. And again, it's about intimacy. I kind of replaced the word customer experience with customer intimacy today. Intimacy is fostering a sense of closeness. So everyone can have an experience. It can be good, it can be bad, but it's generally short term. Intimacy is a long-term thing. Again, back to human relationship. Intimacy is what we crave. It's the brands that are leaning into intimacy, that are replacing the word customer experience for customer intimacy in their organizations. Then people get it really fast. They think, okay, intimacy. I need to be fostering a sense of closeness with my customer, with my supplier, with my stakeholder. Okay, what can I do to do that? And again, it puts the focus away from transaction back into the relationship. And that man who got that laptop, imagine he was planning a conference next year for his organization. Which hotel is he going to use? Really simple. The return, desire to invest. Forget about ROI. The desire to invest in the moments that matter, and it will come back to you. It's just corporate karma. It'll come back to you and it'll double down all the time. And then some people say, well, what if you do those things and that customer doesn't book the conference? It doesn't matter, because it was the right thing to do. Ethically, morally. If you focus on the profit all the time, you're going to not create a nice workspace. You're not going to have people going home thinking, and that lady went home to her family and she made a difference to someone's life that day in a big way. And that was celebrated inside the organization. But she also, I'd imagine, felt quite good. And we all deserve to feel good. And so if we're in organizations where we're feeling good, we're going to do our best work. The customer's feeling good. They're going to share our story. There's your return on investment. And the profit follows. Of course it does. The profit revenue follows. But focusing just on the profit and the revenue is a sure way to become a very transactional brand. In our future digital world where human connection is everything, I think you're going to really struggle to create significant market share for your business.
Beautiful. Ken, what scarce becomes valuable, I'll take away as not just optimism, but validation of my personal belief that human ingenuity and creativity will last and will continue to be of value. Thank you so much, Ken, for these
You're very
lovely
welcome.
insights, for the wonderful stories. And I must say, I wouldn't want to end this here. This calls for the next episode on a deeper topic. Really
Always
appreciate your
welcome.
time. Thank you so
We can
much.
do a sequel. There'll be the sequel at some point. Why not? Listen, great questions. Really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.